So again, without further ado, I'd like to get Anthony back to talk about the strategic and the very, very targeted steps that he actually took to actually garner up the international sales and approaching festivals and getting it actually shown and distributed. So Anthony, please.
Yeah, let me just do this really quickly. I know it's a long day, but I think this is the part where everyone wants to know more about. I'm learning as well. I think I've learned so much more making this film in the past 3 years than making a lot of shorts. In terms of the business of film, what's interesting is this. I knew that I wanted this film to not just play in Singapore. I wanted this film to be an international film. I'm not saying that it's going to be a huge blockbuster, but it's a film that could actually do some form of sales. What is very strategic about it is that for it to do sales, it needs a sales agent, of course. What happened was this: about very, very earlier on when I was pitching the film, the film was one of the projects selected at Tokyo Film Max. So there were a few projects that were selected from Asia. We were pitching it, and the great thing is when I was pitching the idea, this film won Best Project. And as part of the jury president was Ho Xiaoxian, and then there were Simon Feel, who was Apichapong's producer, and then there was as well the managing director of Memento Films, that's French-based, Parisian-based sales agent. I'm not sure how much does the audience know about sales agents. You probably have heard of Fortissimo, you probably have heard of Wow Bunch, you have heard of Celluloid Dreams, you have heard of, Memento now is quite big, Films Boutique. So that Match Factory, a very big German company. Basically, sales agents, they represent your film and they are the ones that do the sales for your film. And obviously they make a commission out of it, but they are the ones that actually push your film at festivals, at markets. Apart from making films, I love cinema. I watch all kinds of films. I make it a point as well to read the trades. I'm always reading Screen. I'm always reading, Hollywood Reporter. I'm always reading Film Biz. I think it's important to know what's going on, even though I don't make certain kind of films. It's just good to know what's going on, where films are going, who is selling what, things like that. I did actually spend some time researching different kind of sales companies, speaking to different producers, especially European producers, overseas producers, art house producers on sales companies. You realize that certain companies, producers will tell you they're like an IKEA catalog. They've got everything. They do like 100 films, a year. You're just one of the 100 films. If your film doesn't sell, that's it. They're going to move on to something else. They're just going to go for... I wouldn't name names, I don't think it's nice for me to pick up names. But I think it's very important to understand what kind of sales company is good for your film. I knew from the start, first, I wasn't making a genre film. So even if it's an art house film, it's not a genre sort of art house film. It's not a thriller. It's not a horror film. It wasn't something that's quintessentially very, very commercial. What I needed wasn't like a big sales company that was trying to sell like 100 films a year. What I needed was a company that really cared about the film, that really could package it in the best possible way, sell it, pitch it in the best possible way. What I needed was a boutique film company. I've been courting them for some time, Memento Films, because I knew how good they were. There are a lot of, I'm not saying they are the best, there are a lot of boutique companies in Germany, in France, that do sales. That I think the French-based sales agents, they are very, very good for selling particularly Asian product, because Asian films don't do well in Germany at all. Until now, we're still trying to negotiate Germany. I'll just give you a sense of why this sales company. There are companies that, I'm not sure how many of you actually know how sales is done at markets and festivals. Like, I mean, you think how, I think you probably know, but I think most people, what they don't know is that what happens is this. So they represent your film, they take a commission, by selling your film, but at the same time, they charge an expense, and what you call a marketing expense, to your film. So depending on how many market screenings they book in Cannes, in Berlin, in Toronto, that's all charged back to you, depending on how many posters they print, depending on how much stuff. If they throw a massive big party, that's all charged to you. So it sounds great, you are there in the limelight. Oh yeah, you have all that publicity, but it's not funny when you have got 100,000 or 200,000 euros of expenses charged to your film when the sales is probably not going to cover that. So what is interesting is it's that, for the company that I really like, they were very, very modest because in how they strategize their films, they think it's very important that something goes back to the film company, something goes back to the filmmaker. It's about the longevity of the filmmaker's career. It's not about, let's just do what we can now and then nothing comes back. So that was interesting. Memento is a boutique sales company. They represent about 8 to 10 films a year. Out of that slate of films, they only represent 2 first-time features a year, which means, I knew that already, which means it's probably very hard. They see about 400 films, and out of the 400, they represent only 10 a year. Why? What is so special about this company? I can only tell you about this company because my experience was with this company and whatever horror stories I heard about other people. But I can tell you about my experience, and one thing I like about them is that somehow they've got very, very good taste. I don't know why. Everything they choose seems to win awards. So I'm not sure if you recognize all these films. These are some of the films that they've represented in the past, 5 to 6 years. A Separation was the big Oscar winner. It won the Golden Bear in Berlin. The Class won the Palme d'Or in Cannes. Still Life won the Golden Lion in Venice. That sold very well for an Asian film. It made about 1.7 million. 1.2 or 1.7 million US in sales, which is a lot for a very, very low budget, if you know Jia Zhangke's work. Wonderful Town, it's a Thai filmmaker. We know him lovingly as Juke. That was picked up at Busan when they saw the film, and that film, after Busan, it actually won the Tiger Award, Best Film at Rotterdam. Somehow, it's not about, this company is chasing awards, but somehow they have got very good taste. And in the art house rhyme of things, being in the right festival and winning awards, it really increases the value of your film. It really increases the chance of your film being sold to more territories. My experience with them was very interesting because I knew I wanted to court them. There were some other companies I was looking at, but because their managing director was at the pitch and I was awarded the prize, they knew of this project. So they always, every 4 to 5 months, they would write to me like, we want to read the script. We want to read the script. Can you send me the script? Because a lot of sales agents, they want to read a script to see if they come on board. But for 2 years, I refused to send them a script. And that was for very, very strategic reasons. Because I knew that the film is a domestic drama. If you were to read the script, it might feel like, this is the most boring thing on earth. There's nothing really like I said, there's no murder, there's no rape. Nothing huge, life-threatening or political happens in the film. And I think this is a film that you might actually start to form a bias against it if you were to just read it on the page. I'm quite sure if you were to read a lot of Edward Young's films on a page, they would look ridiculously boring. But they are amazing films that really just touches your heart. So 2 years later, they sent me another email, and I said, "Oh, can we read the script?" And I said, "Oh, I've just finished shooting the film, and in 2 months I'll send you a cut." And they wanted to see a first cut. So then again, I did a very strategic thing of, because I really liked them as a sales company. I really wanted them to represent the film. So I did this very strategic thing of not showing them the first cut, not showing them the second cut. In fact, it was 2 months later when we are very, very close to locking picture. That was when I told them, okay, I'm going to send you my film. Okay, see it and let us know what you think. So we sent it, I remember, on a Friday, and they saw it over the weekend, and on Monday, they wrote a long email, said, we love the film, we want to do it, and the great thing is, the version that they saw, because they have some comments as well of how we could improve the film, the version they saw was 100 minutes. The current film length is 99 minutes, which means there's not much difference. That means I was so sure that it's something that we are all convinced, me, my editor, I think Benoit has seen a cut. Every one of us are so sure, okay, this is something that we really can put out there. We're not going to send in very, very scruffy sort of work. That's when they came on board, which is great. So we work with them, on talking about how else we can sculpt or the cut even more, but really the difference is really just 1 minute. Actually, it's just one scene at the end. We're talking about, do we put it in? Do we not put it in? You'll see the film, then you know if it's in. It was interesting because it wasn't a sales company that just threw you at the side like, oh, okay, just do what you want. So we were really talking through strategy. Strategy in terms of how we want to position the film, strategy in terms of what festivals it should play, and also strategy in terms of the press kit, the poster, how it should look, what kind of images should be out there. So there was a lot of hand holding. You felt like it was a company that was interested to be involved in the process, to really present your film out there. From very, very early on, they did say already, this probably isn't a film for Berlin. Like I said, actually Germany isn't very, very big on Asian films, and it's probably very, very tough for a first-time director. Berlin did see the film. One thing we learned, I learned a lot of little things. I think it's good to take notice of through the journey. We had to spend that cost, but I think it was worth it, that we would never ever send a DVD to a festival. That's one thing I learned from the sales agent. We'd never send a DVD to a festival. Every time we send to a festival, it's always on HD cam. And you're wondering, oh my God, it's so expensive. I have to bring it to, a post house. I have to play it out to HD cam. But why do you send a HD cam to a festival? I mean, for shorts it's one thing, but features is another thing. You don't want a programmer to be watching your feature on a laptop. You don't want a programmer, especially a very big festival, to be watching your feature halfway, pausing it, and then going to the toilet, coming back, and then forgetting about it. You want them to be forced to see it in a screening theater as a committee. You want them to experience your film together, and not like, oh, you watch it on your own, I watch it on my own. Yeah, we don't really like that film. So these are small little things, but I thought it was very interesting, what I learned, about how you actually present your film to the festival. We did screen it to Berlin. That was when it didn't have a full sound mix. It wasn't completely fully graded yet. But they were very strategic as well. I will share it in here. Yes, you might say, oh, the sales company is being very ambitious, but they felt that, but for the film to have legs, for the film to go places, it can only be in one place in Berlin. They did tell the festival that, see this film, we only want it in competition for the Golden Bear. We don't want it in the panorama. We don't want it in the forum. Yes, you might think, wow, first film, why so aggressive? Why so ambitious? But for them, it's about whether this film would have a life after its premiere, whether this film would be able to do sales later on, whether this film would expose the director so that he could make the second and third film. And they felt that for a first-time Asian film, if you want to be seen, you want to be heard, it has to be there. And obviously, Berlin didn't, because it was straight. The offer was, if you like the film, we want it in competition. We don't want any other section. So obviously the film wasn't in competition, and they knew straight away, because they were quite reluctant to send it to that festival, because they knew straight away that this film is a film that would play well at Cannes. This film is a film that will play well in France. There is a sense from the sales agents, them dealing with different kind of films, different kind of markets. They sort of know these things. So the next place, what we did next was to really finish up the film in time for Cannes. The film was sent to Cannes actually. It was quite soon, when we got a selection from the director's fortnight quite early in the game, and that was when we were just trying to get the press kits together. The deal was this, that because it's very expensive, everything that a sales agent does is charged back to you, which means a European graphic designer costs so much more than your friend in Singapore doing Photoshop. So the deal was, okay, we will do the press kit, we'll design the press kit, we'll print the press kit, but you guys, do the poster. Because they had and then we were going through a lot of different versions. In fact, it came to a point where we were arguing for 2 weeks over the synopsis. It's about how you present the film to, so that people would actually go and see it at the festival. How do you present the film so that the press would actually be keen to take a look at this film? I think that's my experience with them. It's been good so far. We signed a contract where the expenses were capped, because they knew it's a small film. If you're going to spend a lot of dollars and splash a lot of money in Cannes, you're not going to see the money back. But I'm going to share with you actually that whole week, because that was a very, very dramatic week in Cannes. So we got everything ready. We brought our actors there. So we had this is our photo call, in Cannes. It was great. It was a good section to be in. The director's fortnight, it was at the Theatre Corset, where it's an 800-seater. There's a circle, and then there's stores. It's completely packed. There was still a lot of people waiting outside who couldn't get in. So you thought, great, this is a great premiere, isn't it? But what happened was this. Some of you might have heard of it, before. We had the worst luck in the world. The film actually stopped in the middle. I remember at the 40-minute mark, the film stopped. It just stopped. And it stopped for 5 minutes. It was awful. There was a blackout in Cannes. Basically, there was a power shortage, and all theatres were affected. All hotels were affected. It had to happen to my film. You work you work for 10 years, making your first feature, and then you think you have this great premiere, and then the film stops. And the film didn't stop once. It stopped 3 times. The first time 5 minutes, the second time 3 minutes, the third time 2 minutes. And later on, we lost some French subtitles, we lost some English subtitles. Actually, there are a few people here who were at the premiere, so they can remember that very well. I was literally shitting my pants, and I was just trying to act calm, but I was trying to curse and swear at someone, but I don't know who. You can't curse and swear at God. So the problem with a festival like that is a very brutal place. I've been to screenings where you have huge standing ovations. I've been to screenings where people boo a film and we walk out, they throw tissue paper, things like that. So it's a very, very, very brutal, very, very critical audience. So I was telling myself, God, you know what? People are going to walk. In Singapore, people are going to walk in 5 minutes. They're all going to disappear because they just go on to the next film. But what was special was this. Somehow, people were into the film and they kept to it, and everyone stayed. Even those that went out for a toilet break, they came back. So everyone stayed, and at the end we had this huge applause. And at the start, I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe it's these very kind French people taking pity on our small country, like so sway. But what actually happened was that it just went on and on, the applause, until it became a bit awkward, and you saw that there were a lot of people crying in the audience. What's interesting is this: I always thought I made a tragedy. If you read most of the reviews in France, if you read every website genre, it says comedy. Because somehow in France, people are laughing from the first minute all the way to the end, and then at the end they cry. So we had a really, really amazing premiere, despite the glitches, despite the problems we had. The next day, the reviews started to come out in Le Monde. Some French newspapers started coming out in Screen, some of the trade papers, and they were very, very good, very, very positive, almost unanimously positive reviews. So there was a buzz, there was a buzz around the market. You hear people talking about it. People kept talking about, oh, did you see this Variety journalist? She's like crying and crying, crying out of your screening. So everyone was talking about this Variety journalist that came out of ILO ILO, and she was just crying and crying, and she looked terrible, you see. So, and people are talking, there was a buzz about this small little Singapore film. You should go and see it. It's quite interesting. It's different from everything else. It's very small. It's very humble, but there's something there. So there was a buzz created. 3 days later, we had our first market screening. Some sales agents, they are very, very aggressive. They might have 7 market screenings, but each screening will cost you 2,000 to 3,000 euros because you book the hall to screen it to buyers. So for a company like that, they were very, very conservative. They didn't want to, do this big splash, and then in the end, no one comes. They felt it's important to just do one good market screening and get the people that they feel will like the film in. So because of the buzz, we had our first and only market screening a few days later. It was a 150-seater. I wasn't there because they tell me directors shouldn't be at market screenings because you might cry, because how buyers watch films? They are texting while they're watching their films, they're emailing, and they're like trying to make deals while they're watching your films. So it's very brutal for a director. But because of the buzz, because of the kind of premiere that we had, the word had gone out. So we had a completely packed market screening, and people were sitting on the floor. Imagine buyers were sitting on the floor. The next day, every 10 minutes or half an hour, I was getting a call. We sold North America, we sold Australia, we sold France, we sold Scandinavia, we sold Switzerland. And so most of the times, people think that the sales were done because, the film won an award, so people are buying the film. But what's interesting, and I think now they are slightly regretted that, because they probably could sell it for more money after the awards, if they knew. So what's interesting is that actually most of the sales was done before the award. I haven't been keeping up with emails, so this was what we had from like a month ago. So the film right now, as it stands, has been sold to like North America, UK, France, Scandinavia, Switzerland, Australia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, Korea. I don't know why Portugal and Turkey. We have sold like an all airlines deal, and there are other territories that we're waiting to sign off and negotiate agreements with. So I think it's quite interesting, because I think most of us know that a lot of Singapore films do not go beyond the shores of the Straits of Malacca. Singapore and JB and KL. So it's very interesting that, because it was a very, very, very local film. I always thought that it's very, very culturally specific, that you need to be Asian to understand the film. But somehow, at the premiere, the audience have proven us wrong, that it's more universal a film than I thought. So, what's next? After the sales, Of course, the film is going to be released in different countries. We are out in Singapore next week. 4th of September, we are out in France. We are having quite a big release for a small Asian film in France. We are going in about 50 to 70 cinemas, which is why I'm flying back to France to promote the film. We're out in Hong Kong 21st November. We're out in Taiwan 29 November. And then we're waiting to slot in the rest of the dates, when the distributors think, when's the right time. And the film has already been selected for about 20 other festivals, in all kinds of places, very weird places, from Kazakhstan to Mongolia to Mumbai to Sao Paulo to Ukraine. But maybe I should talk a little bit about Memento again. Because what I realized was that it's run by a company that's really interested in cinema. They really love films, and they do what they can to protect films as well. Sometimes I will ask them a question, because a lot of times I think as young filmmakers, because when I make my short films, I do that all the time. You just send DVDs everywhere. Every festival in the world, the smallest one, the biggest one, you just send, and you don't really care. You see, so what? Let's just send DVDs, and then we'll see if we get in. But for them, I started to ask them certain questions like, oh, why aren't we showing at that festival? I can't tell which festival. The one in China, that one, they have so much money there, and it's so glitzy, and the prize money is good. Why can't we show it in that Middle Eastern festival? Why can't we show it here and there? My friends have screened there before. And then they said, well, we only show at festivals that respect cinema. Because it's a company that goes to festivals to check that there's no piracy. It's a company that checks that there's no one videotaping in the audience. So it's very interesting that I think it's almost like a marriage, and you really need to know who you're getting married to, and you feel that the ethics of this company is right, and you sort of feel that they are genuinely serious about pushing your film out. The way they have pitched the film, they're always saying, it's very important to call it a small, humble film from blah, blah, blah. They wouldn't say it's a masterpiece from Singapore, because the moment you pitch it as it's a masterpiece from Singapore, people are going to have all kinds of big expectations of it. So it was really that. There was all this buzz on the last day of the festival. I was packing my bags, having lunch, and then packing my bags. I was just about to catch a flight in 2 hours back to London, and that was when I got a call from the festival, and it was the deputy director of the official selection, and he said, "Are you staying on for the award ceremony?" And I said, "No, I'm catching a flight." "We think you should stay on for the award ceremony." and then I said, "Oh, okay. We think you should change your flight to tomorrow." "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" I said, "Yeah, I could sort something out." So I was asked to, just change in your tuxedo, meet at the red carpet, 6 p.m. And that was it. And then the film, was accorded this huge award. And I think what was really lovely was this, and it rarely happens, and I think, we had a lot of good luck as well, that when we met the jury, Agnes Varda and all her other 6 jury members, it was a very unanimous decision. In fact, we were told that they did a vote once, midway, before they have seen all the films, and actually at that point the film already come up tops. And then they did another vote at the end, on the day of the award ceremony in the morning, and they chose the 3 top. I did ask them, which are your 3 top films? And they said, these are our 3 top films. And in the end, it was unanimous. Everyone voted for the same film. So it was, yes, we will never be able to predict if the film wins an award. We won't know that, obviously. I couldn't even predict the response of the audience. I couldn't predict the sales. But at least I would say, in terms of strategy, I tried my best to get, the sales company, the people that I feel are best for my film, and it really started from 3 years ago, and ignored their emails for 2 years just so that I could get them. It's the same thing with the local distribution, because it's not just about selling the film outside. I very, very much wanted the film to be seen in Singapore. And we know, for those of you that know, most festival films that have come back home probably screen on 1 screen or 2 screens. And that wasn't what I wanted for this film, because I felt there was something more accessible. I think this could be something that even layman Singaporeans could connect with. So I did something quite strategic there, because for the longest time, we were in contact with GV, but they wanted Golden Village, distributor, exhibitor, as part of our old MDA contract. They had to have first right of refusal. So we had to, show them the film, and if they decide no, then we can move on to another distributor. But they were asking, can we see a screener? Can we see a DVD? And I refused to show them a screener, because that's the last thing I want to do again, to have someone watching it on a laptop and then go to the toilet and then come back. Because, unfortunately, it's not a big CG film where you can just stop and pause and it will still work. We feel that it's best presented in the best way. So what I told them was, I'm giving you 4 invites, come to the premiere of the film. You'll be in Cannes anyway. And they were there. And I arranged to meet them the next morning at, just before I was doing press, 8:30 in the morning. So the first time they saw the film was the same as with all the actors, with the whole audience, at the world premiere. And they saw the response. And immediately you felt, wow, this film perhaps has some legs. And the next day when we had our meeting, straight away they could commit to, we are going to give you how many screens, this is what we would do. So in a way, you can't predict, and you can't sort of second guess the success of a film, but you could actually have some form of strategy so that you protect yourself. And I think it's not so much about protecting yourself, it's about protecting your film, because sometimes good work just goes out unnoticed, and I think it's on the onus of the filmmaker to bring that film out. Yeah, a lot of times, I'm just a creative, I'm just making the film, I don't need to bother about what happens to it. But what happens to it affects you. It's the same thing with this sales company as well. They were not, when they were selling the film, when they had similar offers for certain territories, they weren't like, let's just go with the biggest company. Actually, sometimes we have meetings and we sold to the smallest company, because we wanted not a company, a distributor that would release 20, 30 films a year. We wanted a distributor that released 7 films a year. Then they would take really proper care of your film and they would bring it out. So there was that. A lot of the conversation was, yes, we will do sales with the film, but, at the same time, because it's a first feature, it's about the career of the director. It's also about longevity. So it's very important that even for territories that they can't sell, or they know that it won't be sold to a certain territory because it's a difficult market, they make sure that certain buyers see it, so that as a director, you are being seen. People know that this film exists. People know that, there's this film from Singapore, there's this director from Singapore. So, that's my experience with them. I don't intend to paint a rosy picture, because I have heard a lot of horror stories. But because I've heard a lot of horror stories, which is why I was very careful about who I wanted to work with, whether going internationally or, about how we bring the film home into Singapore. Thank you.